If you're thinking about buying an apartment in Paris and have started looking online, you've probably seen the listing prices. But here is the thing, in France, and especially in Paris, the price you see is never the price you actually pay. Today, we're breaking down the real all-in cost of buying property in Paris, including all the hidden fees nobody tells you about, so you can avoid bad surprises and budget properly for your dream apartment in the French capital. I founded Baron's Realty, the #1 real estate agency for international buyers in Paris. We help you find your dream Parisian home at the right place and at the best price. We basically take care of everything from securing financing and finding the perfect apartment at the best price to handling French paperwork, notary meetings, and breaking down the language barrier. Let's dive in and explore all the fees you should keep in mind when buying a property in France. Let's start with the obvious one, the listing price. In France, and especially in Paris, property prices are expressed per square meter. But the price per square meter isn't the same everywhere. It depends massively on the arrondissement you're buying in. By the way, if you're not familiar with Paris yet, an arrondissement is just a district. The 1st to the 8th arrondissement, the central and western parts of Paris, are the most expensive. You're looking at 13,000 to 25,000 euros per square meter for a good property. Think areas like Le Marais, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, or Avenue Montaigne. Prices there can get very high. The 9th to the 20th arrondissement are a bit more affordable, usually 9,000 to 14,000 euros per square meter, depending on the specific neighborhood. For example, a 50 square meters apartment in the 7th could be worth 1.3 million euros, whereas the same size in the 11th could be around 650,000 euros. So it's important to know not only your budget, but also your priorities. Do you want charm, centrality, a view, or more room for your money? Now, let's talk about a mandatory cost in every property transaction in France, the notary fees, frais de notaire in French. In Paris, for an older property, which is over 90% of the market, the notary fees are usually around 7.5% of the property price. So if you're buying a 1 million euros apartment, that's an extra 75,000 euros right there. This includes the notary's actual fee, various taxes and government duties, and registry costs. Fun fact, the notary's personal fee is only a small portion, about 10% of that total. The rest goes to the state. Another often overlooked cost, agency fees. Real estate agencies typically charge 3 to 5% of the property price in Paris. Now, here is where it gets tricky. Sometimes the agency commission is already included in the listing price. How do you know? Look for the mention FAI, frais d'agence inclus, which means agency fees included in French. If it's not listed, you will have to pay the agency fees separately. For example, if you see an apartment listed at 1 million euros FAI, it means agency fees are built in. If it just says 1 million euros without FAI and the agency fee is 4%, you'll need to pay an extra 40,000 euros. In France, a seller can list a property without an agency. But keep in mind that in Paris, most properties are sold through agencies due to the high prices and the level of protection buyers and sellers are looking for. Another cost to consider is bank and financing fees. From experience, most foreign buyers purchasing property in Paris tend to pay all cash without using a mortgage. But if you need or simply want to finance your purchase through a bank, the good news is that it's entirely possible in France. First, it's important to know that France is attractive to international buyers because non-residents can get a mortgage too. You don't need to be a French citizen to borrow from a French bank. Mortgage terms can be relatively long, typically 15 to 25 years, which means lower monthly payments. However, French banks are generally a bit stricter with international buyers. In most cases, you'll need a down payment of 30 to 50% of the property price. Another key advantage, most mortgage rates in France are fixed. As of November 2025, rates for foreign buyers usually range between 3.4% and 4.2%. Beyond the interest rate, you'll have additional costs to consider. Application fees, they range between 500 and 1,500 euros and are charged as a one-time cost. Guarantee fees, they are around 1% to 1.5% of the borrowed amount and are charged as a one-time cost as well. And finally, loan insurance is usually 0.35 to 0.50% of the borrowed capital per year and is charged annually. Of course, your personal financial profile will influence these numbers. If your finances are strong, you may be able to borrow over a longer period and at a better rate. Overall, France remains one of the most accessible and flexible mortgage markets in Europe for international buyers. Keep in mind that it's also very important to consider currency exchange rates when purchasing property in France. Let's move on to another cost, the renovation or decoration costs. Most foreign buyers prefer turnkey properties or at least properties that don't require major renovations. But sometimes even buyers who don't plan on doing work end up renovating because they find the perfect apartment in terms of location, not interior condition. So here's what you need to budget if you're doing interior work. Keep in mind that exterior renovations are usually not allowed in Paris since buildings are protected. For small renovations, expect to spend between 500 to 800 euros per square meter. For heavy or high-end renovations, expect to spend between 1,000 to 2,500 euros per square meter. Finally, buyers often forget two recurring costs, the building charges and the property tax. Unlike notary or agency fees, these are ongoing and will apply as long as you own the apartment. First, the shared building fees, called charges de copropriété in French, include maintenance, cleaning, the elevator, the concierge, and sometimes heating. They typically range between 20 to 60 euros per square meter a year, depending on the services provided. Buildings in the inner arrondissement, which are more luxurious, tend to have a concierge and therefore higher fees. Second, the French property tax, called taxe foncière in French, is relatively low compared to cities like London or New York. It's usually between 10 to 30 euros per square meter a year. Buying an apartment in Paris is more than just finding the right address. It's navigating a complex market, hidden fees, endless paperwork, language barriers, and local customs most buyers don't see coming. It's easy to make costly mistakes without the right people by your side. That's why international buyers trust us. We are an independent Paris-based buyer agency working with all real estate agencies in the city. This gives you access to the entire market, including off-market properties, so you benefit from the best opportunities, not just the limited selection of a single agency. We don't just find you a property, we save you time, money, and countless headaches. We negotiate the best price, we legally reduce notary fees, we simplify every bit of paperwork, we break down the language barrier, and finally, we connect you with our trusted partners such as real estate lawyers, notaries, contractors, and bankers. In short, we turn what could be a stressful, complicated process into a seamless, secure, and exciting investment. Thinking about buying in Paris? Visit our website in the description and book a free consultation with me to discuss it. Thanks for watching and see you in Paris.